All right. You guys want to talk about some AI?
Yes.
All right. Well, let's get this party started. So I am Charles Warner. I'm with Cannabis and Tech Today, and because we do a tech magazine in the cannabis space, they thought I would be a good guy to moderate this panel. But I actually am not the expert on artificial intelligence. That's why I have a kick-ass panel right here that's going to talk to you guys all about artificial intelligence. We'll have a little bit of a roundtable. We've got some questions that are prepared, and then really what we'll do is we'll open it up to you at the end so you guys can ask some questions because we want this to be kind of your panel. Oh, by the way, there's evaluation sheets. They said that if you guys don't fill those out and turn them in afterwards, we're going to get in big trouble. So make sure you do fill out the evaluation forms, and we're really excited to have you guys here. So without further ado, let me introduce the panel here. First and foremost, we have Thomas Farmer, the CEO of eCard Options. Right. We also have Aaron Silverman, president and co-founder, MediaJel. Mm-hmm. And last but not least, Brandon Newkirk is the marketing director for LumiGrow. And I figured we would just start off first and foremost with Aaron. Can you just tell us a little bit about what is AI?
Yeah, and can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, all right. I'm spare the mic. It's dangerous putting a microphone in my hand sometimes. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, but yeah, in the simplest of terms, AI is it's a way to use and process and respond. It's how computers can use and process and respond to information in really intelligent ways. Far more intelligent, far more efficient, far more economical than trying to scale one person to do the job that AI can do for 1 million people. So that's the way I kind of explain it in its simplest terms.
So why should people be using AI?
Stay with me?
Yeah.
I mean, just in business in general, I think being able to use AI. I mean, for one, AI can do the job that a set of analysts couldn't do on any day or in any hour on any given project. So being able to use AI in your business to be able to process, use, and look at information and make decisions, with very limited to no fault or wrongdoings is imperative. Whether you're looking at nutrients that a plant might need based on discoloration in the leaves, or you're looking at the possibility of conversions on a click from a digital ad that's being served. AI allows you to run your business, grow your business, scale your business, and do things with your business that no team person could do. And I'm not even sure how business can be done without it these days, at least on some level.
Yeah.
I kind of agree. I'll add to that, just from the merchant perspective in the cannabis industry. I mean, it's all about ad spend. So when you're looking at digital media advertisers and you're paying money to grow your audience, you want to make sure that when you spend those dollars, you're getting the biggest hit you can. So if Aaron's taking a pool of 100,000 people, and you're going to get about maybe 2,000 or 3,000 transactions out of it, instead of sending all those dollars out to 100,000, maybe you can better target and predict who might like this or like that, or what their behavior is. Or this is what AI does, and it'll shuffle all that down maybe to 30,000. So then your spend is much less, but you're getting the same juice. So you're getting a much more efficient spend dollar, and that's really what AI does. Is that a good way to explain it?
Yeah, if you'd like to come work for me. Yeah, that was good. That was well done. Thank you.
Brandon, can you talk a little bit just about how AI is used to analyze like farm data, tackle labor challenges, and improve cultivation methods?
Yeah. So I'm going to come in with a different perspective here from the grower side of things. LumiGrow, we're the smart LED lighting company, so we do things around IoT and automation and growing environments. So just by show of hands, I'm wondering how many people here represent growers or consultants or growers themselves, or are most of you guys on the business end? Not many growers. Okay, well, it might be interesting for you still, So I mean, generally we think about environments, 3 different novel situations in terms of agriculture. So you have outdoor growing, you have indoor growing, and you have greenhouse growing. So I think on the outdoor side, although my business doesn't touch this as much, I think the most exciting thing that I'm generally seeing is precision agriculture. And that's generally using deep learning algorithms, which is a really advanced AI using neural networks to analyze satellite images, as well as analyzing images captured by drones in the field. And really what you're seeing there is being able to look at predictive outcomes for how much yield you're going to get from your crops, and as well as should you harvest this plot versus this plot first. Generally in agriculture, they harvest everything at the same time, and that's not exactly the best way to optimize your ROI in terms of harvesting. And then another thing that they're doing with precision agriculture is being able to identify plant stress and disease from the air at a very granular level, depending on where it is and which plot. Whereas before they would just use a labor force going out and scouting. So by using those deep learning neural networks, it actually can learn over time and become better at recognizing certain types of plant disease, certain types of plant stress, and then you can also integrate that with sensors as well in the field to be able to get more granular data on top of that. So then when we're looking at indoor environments, we're generally looking at an IoT mesh network. And that's generally what we do at LumiGrow. We create IoT mesh networks using cloud-based software, and we do it for lighting, to automate lighting, whether it's adjusting the intensity of the lights, the spectrum of the lights, or how long the lights are on. But that can also has the potential to integrate with HVAC systems, with irrigation systems, fertigation, a number of different climate control systems. We're starting to see that integration beginning to happen, and certain technologies such as ours have become pretty advanced on say the lighting side or on the HVAC side, but we're just starting to see integration happen in the industry. And then without taking too much time, the greenhouse side of things is really what excites me the most, because in a greenhouse you're able to use natural resources, sunlight, and better use temperature and airflow from outside, while still having complete control over the environment. And in indoor environments, that's something we consider a novel environment, and AI really works best in novel environments, opposed to when you look at general lighting markets or markets that happen just in nature. There's a lot of randomness in nature, and although you think you can predict an outcome, generally you're surprised, and it's pretty hard to control those type of environments. So it's kind of a bird's eye view on how we think about cultivation and AI, but we'll dive more into it.
And if you're surprised, then you could be taking a big hit. Like if something goes wrong. They say, data's the new oil. But if you can't aggregate it and you can't predict, then, what good is it? And, we were talking yesterday about some examples where, if something goes down or something changes or whatever, you could lose like $1 million crop just like that. So if you aren't embracing artificial intelligence or some type of it, you're kind of being stupid, right?
Well, absolutely, and it's the combined effort. I think maybe a great analogy is, Brandon was talking about maybe some specific crops, but really it's all the crops. So the machines are sharing. Think of it like right now we talk about these self-driving cars, driverless cars, right? So if we all drive an average of about 15,000 miles a year. So maybe there's 1,000 cars out there being developed by all these various manufacturers for self-driving cars. Well, they're driving 100,000 a year, because they don't have to take a bathroom break. But there's maybe 1,000 of them. So 1,000 times 100,000 miles, in 1 year, they've got the experience and the learning of 100 million miles. How long would it take us to do that? So the same thing is true in agriculture. Same thing is true in everything that AI is doing. It's machine learning in a way that they're compiling all that data, all that information that we just simply can't do, and they do it in nanoseconds. So they learn. So even though that leaf, you talked about discolored leaf, well, imagine the combined intelligence of all the farms, all the leaves, all the views, all that stuff going into the computers so that they can quickly predict based on all kinds of things what's going on in that particular plant or in that field. So it's a huge benefit, and it's like you got to do it, or now you're going to be behind the curve. It's just not going to work.
I would add that in addition to being wildly helpful when it comes to predictive or being able to predict whether it be environments or what might happen, so we need to have lights on longer, extra water because the heat's going to be greater. What it's allowed us to do, and as an entrepreneur or a business person in the industry, especially in cannabis, It allows it's allowed us, especially at MediaJel, to de-risk a lot of things, to a certain level, which is really economically sound for us. And in layman's terms, it's allowed me to fail really fast. And by being able to fail fast and figuring out real quickly what's not going to work, that's equally as valuable and important to us, if not more so, than learning what is going to work. Because the moment I can figure out what is going to work, there's a lot of work that goes into that once it does. But if I can fail real quickly and find out real quickly what's not going to work at a less expensive cost than it would otherwise, then I can quickly start moving, off of those efforts altogether, redirecting ad budget, redirecting human resources, putting bandwidth at something else. And that's been an invaluable part of growing our business, especially in an industry that has such velocity. It's almost like dog years. And so there's really not a lot of time to waste dollars, waste time, waste bandwidth, waste resources. So that's one way we've used it as well. Sometimes we figure out exactly what doesn't work real quickly, and while it's disappointing, it's really good.
It's kind of like failing forward.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. By de-risking your business, that's really affecting your ROI. And whether you're de-risking it on the business end, on the operational end, or on cultivation. And plant life is very complex. It's actually much more complex than people give it credit for. People that aren't horticulturalists, but even on the operation side of things, you see pretty exciting applications of AI in all sorts of industries. I think a good example of de-risking that I heard of was in the shipping industry. They used to not really pull over ships very often to clean the hulls because it's a very expensive process and labor intensive, takes a lot of time. But by using machine learning algorithms, they were actually able to determine that by taking all that spend and that time to clean the hulls after every shipment that went out, they would actually increase the speed of the boats to deliver the cargo, and they were actually using less gas. So in the end, they improved their ROI by something like 20% on gas, just because they were cleaning their hulls and spending a lot of money up front. So I think we see that across a lot of technology. People are like, well, artificial intelligence, I don't really get it. What does it do? It's very expensive up front, but you're accelerating your payback period and de-risking your business, therefore really improving your ROI in the long run.
It's a smart investment, right? Yeah. Aaron, can you kind of talk a little bit about how AI is applied with MediaJel?
Yeah. So so MediaJel, we're a marketing agency for cannabis brands and businesses. We're driven by data. We use our own technology that we've built. So part of what we do is by using AI to help evaluate behavioral patterns and habits, and based on where we observe where device IDs have been and certain pieces of information, third-party data, first-party data, we're able to look at that and contextualize it and put together highly targeted audience segments so that our clients can make sure that they're putting the right message at the right time, going to the right person. There's a reason why we all maybe get frustrated with certain ads on our phones, but if done right, you're getting ads on your phone or on your desktop or your iPad or even on your TV if you're watching Disconnected on cross-device IDs. You're getting ads that are relevant, and that's what we're doing is we're using AI to help build audiences that our clients want to spend their marketing dollars getting to their message to. So, if our client, for example, comes to us and says, all right, so we'd like to send ads to, females in the San Francisco DMA that are between these ages, how do we find them? We use AI to do geolocation, do a lot of device ID observations. We're not looking at people. This is all permission-based, all opt-in stuff that every time you download a free app, you're firing off a location. That app is going to look for, ads to be served, and that's how this all works and why your apps are free. So what we do is use AI to geolocate a bunch of device IDs that have been seen in certain places to where we can go ahead and draw the conclusion that that's going to fit the profile of our client. So we build an audience out of people that we've seen at a Whole Foods, maybe a 24-hour fitness, a yoga studio, a dispensary, and some sort of soccer, baseball, or football park on the weekend. So a good probability that that's going to be a parent, most likely a female, just based on some other things. And what we do is take the ad and serve it to only those folks instead of serving it to 18-year-old college students or 65-year-old guys that are in country clubs and driving Cadillacs and drinking scotch. We make sure we don't waste their ad dollars on serving ads to people that are going to have no interest in that brand or that product or that experience. So that's how we're using it, is to basically use our clients' ad dollars in the most effective and economical way possible, giving them the best ROI. So that was a long answer to a very simple question, but I want you guys to be able to understand how it works and how these digital ads work and why they're so important.
It is important because, especially on the B2B side of marketing, and we hear it all the time, Cannabis and Tech today, they're like, how do I determine my ROI? How do I determine if this was an effective, ad spend? And it's tough because there's limited ways you can advertise in the cannabis space. You can't do TV or Google AdWords or Facebook advertising or anything like that. So it's really smart how you guys are doing that to help people get exactly the type of individual.
We are doing TV. It's called OTT, over the top. So when you're watching Netflix or Crackle or any of those, so we layer in ads right on top of that, and we can highly target those ads as well and cross device. So you can see an ad on your TV. We'll know you saw it on that TV, and it'll show up on your phone later on. And basically is able to stay engaged with the user. But content is king. We all agree how content is king. You write a blog post, you put it out there. Who do you know read it? How relevant was it? Who responded to it? You may see a like or a click or something like that if there's a comment, but otherwise we use it to look at content and evaluate the efficacy of that content push.
Thomas, talk about the flick.
The flick. That was a little PowerPoint thing I was going to do, but then I thought, oh well, I don't want to bore you guys with PowerPoints. But we live in a flick mentality society. I mean, how long does it take for people to stay on an Instagram picture or page, right? Unless we were just talking about it earlier, unless it's some kind of cat doing a backflip. But the point is you're flipping through those ads. You've got all kinds of people. Google knows, right? Aaron knows. He knows which one of you, right? Not individually, but as a group, what type of person, what you're doing, so they can send you those pictures, or so you can see those pictures in the thing. So as you're flicking through that, especially if you're a merchant, then you want to be able to instantly accept whatever communication they have. Right now, all communication is one-way communication. It's really about targeting. It's about what type of person. Did you go to the soccer game? Did you do this? I mean, they're putting sort of a general view and a pool of what you're most likely going to catch your attention or going to put attention on. So when you have that, instead of panicking and thinking, oh my gosh, what kind of picture, what do I do? And this is where great digital people are helping you find the right message for the right person at the right time, as Aaron mentioned. When you catch that person, when that person says, oh, there's a picture I like, and they stop, or what if they even actually put a little heart on it and click it and they like it, right? Well, that heart just falls down on the floor because there's no response back. And so now this next wave of AI, the first wave is becoming almost ubiquitous. I mean, if you are not engaging with a good digital media tech company, you are not spending your ad dollars wisely. You're not getting the best bang for your buck. And so now the next wave is going to be, rather than targeting, it's going to be converting to cash. So you can now take your social media channels, and when you do message the right person, when you do send out the right picture, and when that person responds, when they stop for a nanosecond on that picture, now AI can actually send them a little DM, says, hey, you want this for 40% off? And right there, you just click the button. It's the same nanosecond. It's the same flick mentality. So you embrace the flick. Go ahead and say, okay, great. Now let's respond to all of these people rather than just taking more data and statistics and say, hey, great, we got 2,200 likes today on our whatever picture, right? Imagine if those 2,200, if you had been able to just respond when they hit it, your communication back.
It's kind of like a vanity play, right now, if you're not converting, if you're not.
Well, it is a vanity play in one sense, but you've got to funnel down the message. You've got to funnel down the target.
Yeah.
So you've got to get to that person. But now what we're saying is with AI, if you're a big dispensary and you got 11, 12, 15 outlets somewhere, you can take all of that information you're getting from all of those customers, so you can better target. But now when somebody like MedMen, by the way, I'd love to talk to MedMen if they're out there, but when somebody's flipping through their pictures and they stop on a whatever it is and they hit a button of a light, what if right there, boom, it said, yeah, buy this bud right now, 40% off. Wouldn't it be fantastic for the company? Sure.
Due to the rapid fire nature of clicking on those the likes all the time, I think that the user will become frustrated every time they like something, they'll get an ad, they'll get an ad to buy it. They think it'll do something. Because I watch my kids and the way they like, I mean, they're gonna be like frozen because they're gonna keep getting these pop-ups.
I mean, I assume that might be possible, but the nature of likes is sort of very few and far between, and the targets are very specific. So there's got to be some combination of that, and the ad wouldn't be an ad. It's a little DM. I mean, it's like you're saying, hey, I like that cannabis water, and you go ding. Wouldn't in that moment, what if the cannabis water said, okay, buy me 40% off right now, and you just hit the button again, and boom, you're in it and buying it. I mean, because 10 minutes from now, you're going to be looking at microphones or out at the pool or whatever. I mean, your attention's gone. Our mentality has been trained into a very, very short attention span. So if you're spending this money, if you're trying to get this done in that moment, even at the customer when he's saying, hey, I like that cannabis water, right there, it's like, probably, I mean, you can ignore it, but yeah, I think that's important to at least communicate back, right? Don't you think? What do you think?
Yeah.
I think it might also have to do with what sort of platform or environment that they're in. If they're in, I mean, you're not surprised if you're on the Amazon platform and you look at a backpack and all of a sudden it says, hey, here's a deal. But I hear what you're saying. If you're just on some social platform and you're just going through, just like, because I got kids too, and I asked them, is there anything you don't like? Is there anything you don't like? And what you're saying is that, I mean, at some point they're going to be, infiltrated with offers and ads and offers and ads. I think it'll come back to the advertiser that wants to spend more to have an interactive sort of ad. Sometimes we get video. Sometimes when you read things, have you ever been reading an article, but the ad always stays there, and as you continue to feed the article, the ad doesn't move. So all these different ad units have different costs because they have different efficacies as far as conversion. So an advertiser might want to spend the extra dollar or the extra CPM to say, hey, anybody that clicks on this, I want to give them an offer. At the same time, with that offer, might say, if you don't want to receive offers, there's got to be some sort of an option, because it all comes down to an experience. But you're right, they can be inundated with ads and become desensitized to them. And
I think maybe the strategy would be to have just popular shopping cart and go back and look at all those items in one shot.
Yeah, and if it's on a platform and an ecosystem where someone can own that, you're absolutely right.
I don't know that you'd want to automatically put it in a shopping cart, because then, again, you're not communicating. And I think the problem now, or not the problem, but the transition now where we're going is, and this is sort of the big message for today, at least from me, is that AI has been one-way communication. It's been fabulous. We need it. We still need it. It's headed in the right direction. The question is, though, aren't we ready now to answer the customer? I mean, the customer is essentially, by liking, by looking, by doing whatever action they're doing, and maybe that needs to be algorithmized so we know when the customer is really interested in saying, no, I really do like it, I really do want to buy it. And I don't know what that is. That'll be a guy like Prashant, the CTO, that's doing that stuff and analyzing that stuff. But the point is, it's two-way communication possibility now. There's also even more where you can go and scrape the social media. In other words, I'm a big cannabis dispensary chain in LA, and there's a bunch of them. Well, I can go to the social media, and now I can scrape all their followers, and I can send them message, and when they say they want to like something, they want to buy this, great. Now I'm just capturing customers because they're not responding. Their customers are liking things, but they're not getting any love back. They're throwing hearts, but they're just falling against the wall.
I think there's almost like a love-hate relationship with artificial intelligence. Like I get in my car and it says, 15 minutes to get home. And I'm like, how do you know where I'm going, right? Like, I mean, that's artificial intelligence, right? It's figured out that that's probably where I'm going. And so at first I'm, kind of a little offended or whatever, like, how are you going to tell me where I'm going? But then I'm like, that's cool. Like, it knows me and it's sort of suggesting things. And so I think that I think we're just getting comfortable with it. And it is going to be the new reality and everything's going to be smarter and more targeted and more customized. So I think ultimately it's a benefit, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say so. I think there's, a little bit of a threat, just
Yeah.
knowing that there's something that much smarter making better decisions for us. I had the same argument with my wife.
knows
She says,
where
I
I'm
can't
going
believe
for
Wade
life."
says, I think this way is faster. I'm like, yeah, what would a bunch of guys with PhDs in data science and satellites and all these algorithms, what do they know? You're probably right. Let's just go a different way other than what this has given us. But I think there's, just admitting that something's going to know better for us.
Yeah.
But it all comes down to customer experience, and everybody wants a different one. I mean, if I buy a nutrient to help fix discolored leaves on my plants, I wouldn't, and this is me personally, but I think the intelligent part of this is I buy a product to help my leaf discoloration, and then I get an ad from LumiGrow that says, hey, by the way, we have lights that can help, prevent this from happening by letting you know, when signs first come up. Are you interested? And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to keep buying this if I can just invest in some equipment to prevent me from having to constantly treat something. And so that's where it becomes really intelligent, and we're educating people, not just cannabis, but just in general. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know, and I didn't know that there was a light out there that did this, and if I did, I'd have put it in my garden in the first place, or something like that. And so that's where I think, it can be effective, or, making offers, or, intelligently putting products or services in front of people that they might find value. And if they do, great, and if they don't, like anything else, they'll dismiss it, and maybe they come back to it, or you got to stay in their face like any other brand awareness campaign.
Brendan, I was going to ask you, what is kind of the future of artificial intelligence look like for cannabis production?
Yeah. I mean, well, piggybacking on that's a big question, but
yeah.
piggybacking on what you said, I do think that there's even a resistance to artificial intelligence. People don't always understand it. I think we see that in farming and agriculture too. I think that people like it when it helps and with positive outcomes, but growing any plant is not only a science but an art, and growers see it that way. So you have to understand your customer, whether you're advertising, and you have to understand your customer when you're building a great product. And not everyone wants everything to be automated for them 100% of the time. They bring a lot of experience themselves, and sometimes we call it artificial intelligence with a human touch. You're still leveraging kind of this a smart technology while actually being able to jump in there and take control when you feel like it's necessary. And we build that into our software as well. But that addressing that beefy question of what is the future of artificial intelligence, I think that the future is obviously autonomous growing. Having everything plug and play, and once people get comfortable enough with AI, and you can actually produce a better crop without having to touch it, that's actually extremely scalable, right? You don't have to invest in a labor force, and you can just build a completely automated system and then move on to build the next one. And surprisingly, well, not so surprisingly for me, but surprisingly for some, we're already there. We actually, not LumiGrow, but at Wageningen University, this plant science university in the Netherlands, they actually did something called the Autonomous Greenhouse Challenge last year, where Microsoft and IBM and some other companies, as well as some other competing companies, created completely autonomous greenhouse environments to grow against the world's best labor force, growing in the world's nicest greenhouses in the Netherlands, growing cucumbers. And the team that won it was actually Team Sonoma, a Microsoft-run company, and they actually grew the cucumbers without a human ever touching them. And the outcome was actually 20% increased production, and that's not actually packaged and sold on the market yet, and it's going to take a lot of partners to get there, but it definitely proved the concept. And I think really where we are currently in terms of IoT and artificial intelligence, IoT being the network and the equipment, artificial intelligence being the algorithms that Microsoft was creating. I think that we're very much in the teenage phase of that, and it's still very awkward, and that the equipment doesn't talk to each other in the best way. You still have a lot of analog systems. The biggest climate control systems in the world communicate via wires and something of a 1980s type of technology, and then you have technology like ours that's sitting on top of that, where we're cloud-based infrastructure, all controlled from your smartphone. So we're finding more ways to integrate and creating partnerships amongst the industry, whether it be large companies like the Microsofts of the world, or smaller companies that create an individual sensor. But as these companies build their own systems better and find better ways to integrate, and everything becomes more digital, we're going to see completely autonomous growing, whether it's in an indoor environment, greenhouse, and cannabis is really leading the way for that. There's more profit to be had in the cannabis crop than there are any other crops. That said, crops are actually rather specific. So growing, one crop isn't going to always translate to, like a tomato crop, a cucumber crop, although some of that can be taken over. So it's going to take some time, but I think it's going to happen quicker with cannabis. And I mean, I think that we could probably see fairly autonomous growing in the cannabis industry in a pretty advanced way within the next 5 years. But I mean, probably 10 years be much further down the road and actually see it packaged and sold.
Yeah, I would just to add to that. I think one thing that we should, I'll say maybe be careful of is a lot of times, especially in the growing environments, complacency can become a real, a real evil thing to kind of get caught up in, and sometimes AI and automation things, can lead to complacency. And I think having AI and having all this automation and having everything digitized gives us more intelligence and more power and more knowledge to make better decisions without having to be reliant on it. We rely on the AI, we rely on the data to help influence and help us make much better decisions. But I can't say we're always going to rely on it to make all of our decisions, because I don't think it's culture, for example, is too important in a business environment, to a business ecosystem, and to how a company operates and how it wants to grow and how it wants to be perceived. And the minute you start automating everything and letting things like AI make all of your decisions, you end up changing that a lot. I mean, everybody here play fantasy football, or somebody at least played it before? Anybody? Nobody in here playing fantasy football? Yeah, come. All right, so every week in fantasy football, you have a team, and through some AI and through some stat, it gives you a prediction as to what you're going to score versus the person you're playing. So right there, and you can even look at your other players and say, all I got to do is add these players in, and it predicts I'll have more points than this other guy. And if it was that easy, that's all I would do. I'd load up my team with the guys that are supposed to have more points than the guy I'm going to play. But the truth is it gives me some information so I can look at this and evaluate, make decisions. But I happen to know that, this one thing is going on with that organization. I know it might rain over here, so maybe that's not the right kicker to use. I'm going to put the guy that's kicking in the dome. And you start using, as a human, I make some decisions based on that information to give myself an advantage or an edge, and I hope that I'm right. But I have a much better chance of being successful, winning, being right, or whatever, by at least using and looking at and considering what the AI is telling me.
Sure, and I think that's a great point. I think that's a great analogy, of fantasy football. There's a lot of randomness in the world, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to, and you can be predictive, but that's really where AI with the human touch comes in, to talk about one technology, I'm excited about. We just released something called a Spore Cam, which it's the world's first autonomous kind of disease monitor, where you put it in a greenhouse, and it actually uses AI using a film and taking pictures of the airflow that comes in through the little camera. And it shoots it up to the cloud, uses AI algorithms to then identify what type of spore you have in your greenhouse, and then decide how you want to treat it. So in this case, you're not automating everything, but what you're actually doing is, say, oh, I have botrytis in my, which is a plant disease, in my cannabis facility. It can actually notify you that you have that. Then you can decide if you want to use sulfur or whatever it is that you want to use to treat that disease before it's actually contracted. And the way they're doing it now is once the plant contracts the disease, they go and they look and the leaves dying. So then they, administer the treatment, and by that time it's already too late. So I think artificial intelligence has a great way to both be predictive and then provide kind of valuable tools. But in the end, it's up to you as the grower to decide what treatment you want to use, and it's up to you to decide whether you want to administer some sort of advanced lighting strategy, or maybe you're going to rely more on really the best timing in terms of irrigation, fertigation, and a number of other things. I don't think most companies will never use all the bells and whistles, but you got to decide what's your approach going to be, and kind of create your own model.
Well, I'll kind of jump a little bit on the other way and say that part of that randomness is a time lag. So as artificial intelligence gets better and things are more connected, that information is going to be applied quicker. So for example, in fantasy football, you can, I don't play fantasy football, but you can bet right up to the last second, right? Mm-hmm. So if you've got your AI plugged in to your little phone and you're doing your fantasy football, it will already know that the weather in Detroit is different than Atlanta or whatever's happening. So if there are last minute decisions, some of this is we're not all the way down the line. And when we do get all the way down the line, a lot of that randomness will kind of come out of the equation, because all the computer's really doing is taking a much greater mass of information to process it much faster and much more quickly. And in the cases where there is a random component that is something that can't be identified or grabbed by the Internet of Everything and all the data out there, then yeah, the human will have to make the decision. But our brain just doesn't have the capacity to be able to grab so much information and then process it in a nanosecond to make a decision. And just like you mentioned to your wife, I think whenever that case is there, whenever I can use Waze, whenever I can tap into this gigantic bit of information and experience, I'd rather do that than make my own decision.
And go with your gut.
Yeah, then go with my gut. I could end up,
My gut in that situation,
losing
I
a
shouldn't have
ton
said
of money.
anything to my wife in that situation. My gut said, don't say what you're about to say, and I said it.
Did you guys have any questions? I mean, we've got about 5-10 minutes. Did you guys have any particular questions or anything that you wanted to ask? I mean, we got some pretty smart cats here.
Did you say spore cam or score cam?
Spore cam.
Spore cam.
Yeah, so like a disease spore. Yeah, LumiGrow spore cam.
So it passes. Tell me what it does.
Well, things that are airborne, you go into more, but like
Yeah.
spores can be airborne, and
Yeah.
then they come through your HVAC system, and then they land on your plants, but they're so small, these aren't things you would see.
Yeah,
I
so it's
started-
a little it's a little camera that sits inside of a sensor, and it sits in the greenhouse and has a little airflow duct that sucks in the air, and it actually, the spores and any other pollen or anything in there hits this film, and the film is taking pictures very rapidly, and then it takes those pictures up to the cloud where it uses like a deep learning algorithm to then do image recognition on those spores and then let you know what disease you have. And we actually are just teaching it. You can teach it different diseases, and we're teaching it male pollen, which is another big problem. If you have male pollen coming from a neighboring farm, you're going to want to know if you want to, that's going to ruin your entire crop, potentially millions of dollars of investment. You're going to want to know that as soon as possible. The control measures on how to control, male pollen coming into your greenhouse is a little more difficult. You're going to have to go talk to your neighbor. You're going to have to find a way, but you'd rather know than not know. So it's pretty exciting technology. I mean, there's nothing else like it. We just released it a month ago.
Yeah, in the back.
So thank you so much to our panelists and our moderator for a really fascinating discussion and for addressing these very topical issues in a way that's accessible for someone like myself who's a layman and not medical at all. I was just curious to hear your thoughts on how what the future of AI might look like for not companies that touch the plant, but for cannabis service providers, maybe beyond the sort of obvious ad, the direct ads, but could you just elaborate if there's any differences in how AI has helped the service providers as opposed to just dispensaries and traditional
By service provider, what do you mean?
other businesses would
Like
support
staffing.
yeah, like
oh.
HR or insurance. I mean, perhaps it's the same opportunities as non-cannabis companies that work in those spaces, insurance companies and attorneys and so forth. But I was just curious to hear how AI can, what the future of AI might be for cannabis service providers as opposed to.
Go ahead. I mean, and if I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, you're just curious about how AI can help service providers in the cannabis space, not related to marketing and advertising per se.
Right, or maybe you could go into marketing later. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think. I mean, not knowing really exactly what kind of service you're speaking of, I think AI is going to play a greater and greater role, especially in the cannabis space. We're not an industry right now that's overloaded with sophistication, and we've got operaters and entrepreneurs and successful, savvy, and experienced business folks coming into our industry, but they haven't necessarily taken over. So there's a high level of sophistication that we don't have as an industry, and I think that's where AI is going to continue to become more and more of a player in cannabis than it is right now, but compared to other industries. But if you were selling insurance or looking for staffing, and say you're starting a company and you're trying to figure out exactly what sort of folks to find and hire, and where you can find them, and what sort of credentials you'd like them to have, and building out profiles on what sort of culture you want to build and where to find those people. You can use AI to be able to kind of identify them, just like you would through LinkedIn, by creating a certain list of characteristics of people that you're looking for a certain job, and then you can basically use that same audience segment and go find those people anywhere else. So if you've got them here in Northern California and you want to establish the same culture, say over in in Chicago or in New York or somewhere else you might want to open in LA, how do you find like-minded individuals, or a look-alike audience, if you will, and identify them, and then message them with whatever it is you're trying to say?
Yeah, I think there's really a lot of ways, but I think that the cannabis industry has a major advantage in implementing AI because it doesn't have the history of all of the legacy products and systems that they've already put in place. It's a new industry, so the opportunity to do things the new way and the right way. And I think one cool thing I saw yesterday in terms of the retail space was the ability to combine all of the flower products through in an Internet of Things approach, where there's an interactive environment in a retail store where you picked up flower off the shelf, and the actual screen animated and told you everything about that flower, and had some 3D animation shoot out and all the stats, which actually on an advertising end increase conversions, but it's also a better experience.
Yeah.
And then we're also seeing it, especially on the pharmaceutical and medicinal side, qualifying patients, being able to kind of integrate into creating a better experience across on the medical side, whether it's from a doctor and prescribing, or in HR for medical reasons, making that data more accessible. I think that because it's all so new and it hasn't been integrated into these legacy health systems, there's a lot of opportunity there.
I'm sorry.
No. Well, I would just say that from a service standpoint, it's the same. It's what AI is doing right now in all these other industries. In other words, all about all those things that Aaron just mentioned. It takes that ability to find the right people in the right location, and et cetera. In staffing, it's a way to, just like when other industries are hiring people, it's a way to figure out up front, okay, who's probably going to be a good fit, who's going to stick, rather than us having to retrain other bud tenders or whatever it is. So all of that really is the same systems that are being utilized now in other industries. The advantage in the cannabis industry is they're not being used in the cannabis industry. So if you are a dispensary or a company, whatever you're doing in the cannabis industry, if you will at least take these tools that other industries are using to up their game and bring it into the cannabis space, your competitors in the cannabis space are much less. So you have an advantage by using those similar tools. That's what I would say in that regard. I hope that answers that.
Yeah.
I have a question about what does it cost? Let's say a company wants to do this in-house, or just for media buying, for example. Do they purchase the data and incorporate it into a software program, or how do you access this? How do you
Well, as a company, you would hire a company like MediaJel, and then they would utilize AI to digitally target, to do all of these things and work with your marketing campaign and people and figure out what you want to do. That
No.
proprietary? What I'm trying to say is MediaJel develop just a proprietary system, or do they go to another source for all this data?
Yeah, that's a great. So his question was, where do we get? How do we use the AI, and how do you get access to what the AI is doing without having to either buy it, put it in yourself, or even if you did, how would you use it? So,
Or what it would cost?
yeah, what it would cost, and I think the cost itself. I couldn't even begin to answer the cost because I'm not understanding what it is you're trying to achieve by using AI. But here's what we would do in a relationship standpoint: is we would help understand your goals, what you're trying to achieve. We would use our tools and our tech and our talents and our capabilities and the AI that's all built into that to help figure out what that recipe is going to be. And then once we're done with that, we provide you reporting. And this is what we've learned, and this is what the analytics say. You thought this was your customer? Well, it turns out we just had, a high percentage of click-through with all these people over here that you weren't even looking to talk to. So you might just want to consider talking with them. And so we share it all back with you, and we give you all those analytics, and we do it in what's called reporting. And that reporting allows you to see what we've seen, see what we're using, and how we're using it to help you achieve the goals that you set with us.
I mean,
so you can put it in. I mean, you can start using the analytics that you've got in your Google dashboard and start looking into that and start really deep diving into what it is they're telling you, because that's what's being used. But then what you do with that information to go and achieve whatever KPIs you have for marketing, that's the human element. We can actually help you at that next step to take those KPIs, go achieve them, and show you what worked, what helped you achieve those KPIs, what got you your ROI.
It's like basically sort of the old school way to do it is you'd hire a marketing team. The marketing team would do the work. They would go out and research and find out. They'd come back, they'd review, they'd test, then they'd come back, they'd adjust, they'd retest, come back, refine, all of that stuff. Now instead of the marketing team hiring those people and doing those reviews and doing those surveys and sending it back out to test, now the marketing team is now using different tools, AI, to do all that in a much more efficient way. It's 1,000 times the data, 1,000 times the survey, 1,000 times the response. I mean, and all done at 1,000 times the speed. Instead of taking months and months and months, you're doing it almost in real time. So it's the tool is the AI. There's the marketing team that you'll hire. You're probably not going to find a marketing team that does that old school stuff. It's too expensive. They can't keep up. They're using the AI tools to accomplish that. You're not, if you hire a marketing team, they don't tell you, hey, you go out and do the survey, you go out and do this. They're doing it all. They're just using a different tool to do that. Does that make sense?
Alexa is a tool, right? You buy Alexa, you put it in your house, you say things, you order things, you ask it to do things, and after a while, it learns your behavior and starts making suggested, things for you to do and consider before you even ask for it. So that's just a tool that you can buy and put in. You just got to know how to use it. But then what you do with that information afterwards, that's where an agency or a marketing company or advertising, whatever, comes in and helps you take what you may already have or provide you things that we have to help you accomplish your goals. So there's just a ton of it out there. I mean, that's a huge answer to your question. Which ones to buy? Not sure which ones are going to be most effective for you. Which platform? Is it a matter of using Slack? Is it a matter of building building whatever tech you have on an AWS platform? I mean, I'm not sure what your needs would be, but
yeah, I would recommend.
Are you talking about doing it yourself, or are you talking about which marketing team to hire?
I'm curious about what it costs to actually develop and platform to do that type of service.
So I work with
Massive width.
I work with marketing teams all the time. I run a marketing department and work with firms all the time. My recommendation would be hire a firm that's specialized in what it is you want to do. If you want to do digital marketing, find a digital marketing firm like MediaJel and, be very transparent about your business case and where you are. I'd share your revenue, your opportunity numbers, what's your lead generation look like, and then let them figure it out for you.
All right. Well, you guys have been a great group. Can we get a round of applause for our panel? And thank you very much. If you want to ask them any questions afterwards, feel free.
I'll stick around if anybody wants to talk.
Yeah, and again, just really appreciate you guys being here. Fill out the evaluation forms, pretty please, and have a great rest of the show.